Okay, so now that you've kind of seen some of the sketch process, let's actually go back and look at these other files and see how I do some of the refinement as I prepare it for plate making. So something I want to draw your attention to here is if you can kind of see how there's some open spaces in these leaves here and how the branches sort of pass behind. That's something that I really needed to fix, as well as kind of cleaning up the edges of this branch that are sort of, I think, like awkward when they come to a blunt edge. I need to clean up this because if I leave this little bit of blue, it's going to be on the plate, and then I'm going to have to worry about trying to line that up, and I'm just going to have little flecks of sort of shape on the plate that I think are going to cause a problem. So what I've done to fix that in my other file here, as you can see, I've actually gone behind the leaves and I've taken the eraser tool and sort of just cut the portions out of the shape that I didn't want to be there. So I erased those just a little bit to fix that. And I also cleaned up the branch edges, which you'll be able to see here. They just look a little more natural now, a little bit more realistic or naturalistic. And then the next step is sort of setting up the color separation. So because I have experience making the plates, and I've done this a bunch of times before, I'm pretty familiar with what my limitations are and how I need to adjust the artwork to separate it out so that I will get good plates. So trying to avoid really, really tiny hairlines. In this case, I think they'll be okay because they're reversed out of the shape 1, so they don't have to hold onto the plate, otherwise they might get knocked off. And you know, if a little teeny bit of that fills in, it shouldn't be too, it shouldn't create too much of an impact on the design. So now to actually separate out the colors, I'm usually using something like the Magic Wand tool to select the different portions and move them to new layers, which you will see here. So you can see I have an orange layer now, and I have a navy layer. And now your plate maker can frequently separate this out for you using something called RIP software, but I prefer to kind of do it myself and then move the images around on the plate so that they take up the least amount of space and I'm getting the most bang for my buck square inch wise. So what I'll do is I'll select all of these orange shapes, move them to the navy layer, and then make them white. And after I've made them white, so for example, if I were to take them now and go to swatches and make them white, you can see they'll block out the portions of the navy layer that I need to. And then at that point, I'll just use the Pathfinder tool to cut them out of the shape beneath. You can actually probably leave them white on the artboard and it won't cause too much of an issue. And then just make sure that your plate maker knows, you know, everything's grouped together so it'll be easy for them to make the plates. So I've actually already separated these out here. So you can see there's the orange layer and there's the navy layer. And now in this case, I'm not worrying too much about having sort of like bleed or trapping around the shapes. And that's where you let a shape be a little bit bigger to sort of help any time that you don't have perfect alignment. I think in this case, I'm going to be able to make it work without too much trouble. I have a few places where there's a little bit of trapping. An object sort of passes over top of another object. But I kind of didn't really feel the need to do that too much here. I think I'm not going to have a lot of problems with alignment. And the way I actually do alignment is I don't like to waste all the extra paper and space of using a set of crop marks out in the corner. Because when you do that, you actually need to use a larger sheet of paper to print. And in a case like this, I really prefer to print on the final cut size of paper. So I'll actually cut the page down to a 5x7 before I print. So that I know, you know, I don't have any waste. I know exactly that everything's perfectly cut and all my alignment will actually be the same on every single one. I won't have an issue with blade creep where it's sort of like they start to scoot over as I'm cutting them down after the printing, and I won't risk ruining them in the cutting stage after all the effort I've taken to print. So I actually like to sort of switch those variables. But the way I make this lined up on that smaller sheet when I don't have crop marks out to the edges is to use these sort of little circle registration marks. And you'll see they're in the same place on both color layers. Now when I get to the printing stage, you're going to see how I use those. I actually will take 1 or 2 prints with a deeper impression if necessary. And then when I align the next image, I will actually seat the plate right in the grooves that this forms, and that will help me line it up. Now, once I actually have everything lined up and I have a few printed with the registration marks, I actually just cut these off the plate with an X-Acto knife, and then they disappear and they're not a problem in the later prints. So it shouldn't be too big of a deal, and I think you'll see that it's actually one of, I think, the easiest ways to line up. It works both on platen presses and on cylinder presses, as long as you're using plastic plates. So we have the design here. You can see on this layer, I have also already knocked out the shapes, but I haven't done it on this layer. So let me show you how I might do it with this one. Now, the map card is a little bit different, and then I don't really have any places where the colors are overlaid on one another. They're actually very separate, which should make this pretty easy to print. Now, if we zoom in, you can probably see that there is a little bit of trapping on a few of the shapes, but I'm going to leave that as it is because I think that will actually assist with the lineup here. So now in this case, my type is still live and editable on all of these because you can see we haven't finished a few of the informational bits. They don't have their website set up yet, and a couple other things. But this one is actually finished. I won't need to edit any of the type. So I'm going to keep a live, functional design here so that if I mess up anything over here or I later do have to change something, I can still come back to this. And that's why I try to use multiple files when I can, so that if something changes or something is deleted, I can always go back and get that item. So now in this case, what I'm going to do is just grab everything in this artwork. I'm going to go to Object, Path, Outline, Stroke, and that's going to outline all of my strokes. And then I'm going to go to Type, Create Outlines. Now, this saves me from having any issues with my plate maker not having a typeface and it's substituting something else. So no matter what happens, no matter where I go to print this or move this file, it will function, you know, in any computer. It's going to show up the same as long as they can open this program. So now what I would do next is I'd probably have to go lock these objects so that they don't get accidentally selected, but just for the purpose of showing you how it works, I'm just going to do this really quickly. So I'm going to use my magic wand tool. And what I'm actually going to do is grab all of each color and then just move the items onto the layer I need to move them to. So in this case, I want to move all the navy objects to the navy layer. Okay, so what that should do is have them all movable here. And now you'll see something's happened here, and that's because I had a white shaped object here that was blocking the portions of the map behind it. So now I just got to go find those or correct that. So I think, is this the white object? Here it is. So that's the white object. I'm going to also move that up to the navy layer, and then I'm going to arrange it behind. So you can go to Arrange, and then send, send to back or bring to front. I'm going to send to back. And now you can see we also have a problem where all the orange objects have disappeared. So I'm actually going to have to move it forward 1, 2, 3. So I'm actually... Let's see, I'll actually send these layers to back because that'll be a little faster. So we'll send those to back, move this back, and then in some cases what I would probably do is actually just use my white arrow or my eraser tool and erase these extra line arts, but leaving the white box here, as long as I lock everything together, should be fine. So we've lost the orange pieces, so all we have to do is now use our magic wand tool to grab the orange layer and then just move that up to the orange layer. So now we should be able to turn on and off each of the layers without an issue. And so the only thing I need to do is actually copy these down to the navy layer. And I just pasted those in place. You can go to Edit, Paste in Place, or use the keyboard shortcut. And then change these using my eyedropper to the navy color. And now I have my artwork separated out for color. And what I can do at this point is just grab the different chunks that I need to grab. You can see I accidentally got a guide there. But grab everything, group it, and now I can go move these onto a new file or a new plate layer where I can then arrange them all on the plate to have them made into polyester plates. So that's really it. It's not too difficult to do. This is maybe the biggest learning curve, but once again, all you need to do is sort of make the shapes white and then use your Pathfinder to kind of cut them out. So if you've never used the Pathfinder before, I'll kind of show you at least what that is. It's something you can kind of explore on your own or learn a little bit more from some other YouTube videos. But in this case, what I can do is, so let's say if I make that a yellow shape, I can actually grab multiple shapes, or two shapes in this case, and cut them apart. So that's basically all I'm doing, is I'm using my divide or my minus front option to sort of slice up the shapes using the other shapes, and then I just delete out what I don't need. So it's not too difficult. It actually goes by pretty quick. Maybe it took me about 10 minutes to sort of fix these up, and it always helps if when you start the design you're actually keeping things organized to begin with. So because I kept everything relatively simple, it wasn't that hard to get it separated out. And now you might notice that now these colors are overlapping. That's because when I used my magic wand, I moved all of the orange up to this orange layer, which, don't worry, this is just a test file, so I'll actually go back and fix that. But ultimately, those are the steps I'm going to take to separate out all the artwork, make sure none of my strokes are going to change shape, and none of my text is going to change by outlining it, and then just dividing it up. And I'm going to, once I finish all the designs here, I'm going to put them on in a new file that I'm going to set up for plates, and I'll show you how I do that next.